Hi, GM everyone. My name is Emmanuel. I am a software developer, and today I will be pitching Raygate. So Raygate is the x402 payment facilitator for Beam, for the Beam blockchain. And before I show what Raygate is all about, let's actually go through the pitch deck. So this is our pitch deck. So Raygate, the first x402 payment facilitator for Beam, any API by request pricing settled on chain. So let's look at the problem. Why are we building Raygate? What is the reason behind it? So no doubt there is, the era of agentic AI is actually thriving. So AI agents are becoming the primary consumers of API. So they run autonomously at scale without any human, intervention in the loop. So AI agents assessing endpoints. So but every paid API today requires account creation, credit cards, API keys, etc. An AI agent cannot do any of those. And then some endpoints that require micropayments like paying in cents, making use of Flutterwave, Stripe, and any other fintech solutions, would require additional charges, which doesn't really, cater for the end user. So now that's where the industry answers. So the X402 is an open protocol that embeds payment directly on the HTTP. So we have Base, Solana, Polygon, Stellar, Repo, Blockchain, and 7 other chains that have already implemented the X402 facilitators. Now the gap. So Beam does not actually have this S402 implemented, despite being built for gaming, AI, and then compute. These are the exact verticals that is actually driving the adoption of X402 at adoption everywhere. Now, what is the solution? The solution is that Raygate is making any HTTP endpoint, API endpoint on Beam charge per request fee settled on chain in seconds. So we are actually implementing the X402 facilitator on the Beam chain. So gaming APIs, AI endpoints, DeFi feeds. So one line of middleware, we have our off-chain signature, and then we verify in less than, so Raygate verifies in less than 50 milliseconds and is directly settled on the blockchain. No accounts, no API keys, no subscriptions, no payment processor. So let's take a look at as an example. So this is the let's say our V1. This is for a beta testing to showcase what X402 can actually do. So we built this version with TypeScript, and we intend moving to production with the version we are building currently on Go using Golang. So this is what it looks like. This is the landing page that explains what this Raygate is actually doing. So we have our docs here for documentation sake, where you can actually understand what Raygate is actually building on Beam. So let's look at this playground. So this is what it looks like. So we have the payer, which is the end user who calls these endpoints. We have the merchant, who is the vendor, the person who should be credited, the owner of those endpoints, or the merchant itself. So we have the facilitator, the actual let's say account, that handles the payment of gas, So that's like the standard X402. That is a facilitator that handles the payment of gas. The end user who calls this endpoint doesn't really need to pay for gas. Then what we implemented is following that standard, and we are looking at migrating to ERC 4337 standard, whereby end users, they are not the payers of the gas. They pay for the endpoint they are calling, and then it reflects on the explorer on chain that they are the originator of the transaction. But what we did at this particular version is that we are following the S402 standard, where the facilitator becomes the originator because it's paying the gas, it's submitting the transaction, which and also signing that transaction by paying paying for the gas. But then we are looking at migrating on production so that every transaction, every x402 implementation will now carry the end user who's calling the endpoint as the transaction originator. So we are intending integrating the ERC 4337 standard. So this is what we have. Now we have these different endpoints. We have this get endpoint, another get endpoint, and a post rest endpoint. These endpoints, these are the amounts they are actually going to charge when you call them, and this is for AI inference endpoint. So the charge is with wrapped beam, is the wrapped version of beam, which was initially before it was WMC. So now this is the balances. Now let's see. So once I hit on execute, all right, so you can see the transaction log, the initialization, the sign for permit to, the verification of signature, calling of the endpoint, submission to beam, and then confirmed on chain. So if I should click on this particular stuff and then access this particular page, I will see the transaction on chain. So this endpoint is charging 0.10 USDC. And if we check the Explorer, we'll see that the transaction was successful. This end user, the payer, actually is the one paying for, and then the merchant is the recipient. So if we check here, we'll see that this is the address of the facilitator. As you can see, this is the address of the facilitator. So it is actually the facilitator that bundles the transaction and sends it on chain and pays for the gas. Now, but it is not the facilitator. It is not the facilitator that actually pays the USDC. So you can see that initially it was 6.1, but it is now 6.2. So this particular money has left from the buyer's side and then is being credited to the merchant, while the facilitator handles the gas. And we can actually see this on the blockchain. So if I should switch to get NFT, and the fee is 1 USDC, and you can see here 115 USDC. So once I hit on this particular guy to call this endpoint, so we can see that the balance of this payer is now 114 instead of 115, and you can see the transaction logs. Once you click on this, you can even see the transaction detail on the Explorer, and then the merchant balance also has actually increased, and this is the facilitator handling the payment of gas. All right, so in this particular demo version, we didn't actually implement only USDC. We also implement wrapped beam. So if I select on this, it is now showing me the balance of the payer on beam. This is the balance of this of beam for this payer, and this is the balance of for the merchant. So the charge for this is 0.0005 wrapped beam. So once I hit on execute, all right, so this is the transaction log, the initialization, the signing of the permit to, the verification of signature, and then the calling of the endpoint, submission to beam chain, and then transaction confirmed on the blockchain. So this is it, and as you can see, it has actually reflected here, and this particular payer has been deducted. So the whole stuff is working very well, and you can see the facilitator is also paying for the gas. It was 23 points, some fractions, now it is 22. So the payment of gas and everything is actually working as it should. And for this version, we are just showcasing what this x402 can actually do in the whole agentic economy.